right, let's bring in CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader, Tom Mulcair. Good to see you, as always, Tom.
Good to be with you, Renee.
You as well. Now, Trump has paused these tariffs yet again. What do you think prompted this delay?
The chaos that had been caused by his initial decision, chaos in the stock markets that started to come back when he removed the tariffs on automobiles, because he finally realized that automobiles are not built in one place anymore. They're built, in three different places. The Silverado pickup truck became emblematic of that. 30% of them are built in Mexico, 20% of them in Canada, 50% in the US, but with parts from all three countries. So how do you unmake that omelet? And this is the part that Donald Trump seems to have trouble understanding. So what he's done now is the obvious thing. It's what Howard Lutnick, his excellent Commerce Secretary, has been trying desperately to get him to do and to understand. Lutnick has to play the game. He has to always say that Trump is amazing. That's the beginning of his sentence. And then he says, but maybe we're going to have to revisit all this stuff. Same game Trudeau played this week when he was, giving that great speech. He said, Donald, you're so smart, but this is really dumb what you're doing. And it's not just Trudeau who says it. Of course, it's the Wall Street Journal. So this is chaos. I think that Champagne hit the nail right on the head. This is insecurity. It's instability. It's unpredictability. And you cannot do business that way. But the problem is, everybody who knows Donald Trump will tell you that's exactly how he's done business all his life. Chaos. And it worked for him in the real estate business in New York City in the 1980s and 90s. But it doesn't work in the real world where things move around. So we're finally getting to a place where he realizes there's a trade deal in place. Oh, and he happens to be the one who wrote that trade deal and signed it, the one you mentioned, Renee, the U.S., Mexico, Canada trade deal. And he says if the products respect that deal, there will be no tariffs. But of course, if the products respect that deal, there can be no tariffs. It's completely illegal. Canada and Mexico were going to sue, and they were going to win. And whether it was during Trump's term or another president's term, Canada and Mexico would have been awarded hundreds of billions of dollars in damages for the United States' clearly illegal move under that agreement. By the way, if they want to renegotiate it, fine. It's already scheduled to be renegotiated next year. You can start laying the groundwork for that, and that would be fine. But how do you renegotiate something and sign it with a country that then says, oh, by the way, I'll make up an excuse concerning fentanyl to be able to tear up the deal? It doesn't work. That's not the real world. And finally, the smarter people around Trump, because Trump is really proven to everybody he doesn't understand this stuff. The smart people around him are finally winning, and that we'll be seeing most of our businesses able to continue. But it has been an absolute catastrophe for the average business.
How can negotiations go forward when the U.S. keeps changing their mind, seemingly?
Exactly. That's the key point, Renee. Exactly right. And he boasted about the deal when he signed it. That Sharpie that he always takes out to sign that big flourishing Donald J. Trump, he signed in the tariffs, and then he says, oh, well, I'm removing them for Mexico and Canada. They were the only ones that it was applying to. I hope that Sharpie has an eraser at the other end, because this is classic Trump. He boldly and brashly moves forward with something that is ill-considered, never even thought through, and then he's forced to back away from it, but he'll declare himself a genius. He gave a speech, a 2-hour speech in front of the U.S. Congress and Senate this week, in which he said that there was a study that had been done that showed that he was the best president in U.S. history, and the second best was George Washington. Of course, that's pure baloney. He's making that up. But what he's doing is he's trying to put that in people's heads. That's what a con artist does. By the way, the word con in con artist is short for confidence. He's a confidence man. He's a flim-flammer. He's a convicted criminal. He's the head of the most powerful country in the world, and we're stuck with him. He's like Nero, playing his fiddle while the place burns. His economy is in serious trouble because they haven't been minding the store, so he's blaming everybody else for the situation they're in. They can't close their budget. They don't have the money. Trump saw tariffs as a way to bring in billions and billions of dollars in free money into the U.S. Treasury, but it was just a tax on American consumers. Going back to that pickup truck, it would have cost $4,000 or $5,000 more if Trump had been allowed to continue with this madness. So he's backed away from it. The chaos that he's created will have echoes for a long time, including, to your point, in our lack of trust in anything that the Americans sign or do in the future.
Mm-hmm. that's our time. We will have to leave it there. Good to see you, and thank you for being here as always, Tom.
Good to be with you, Rennie. Bye-bye.
That is CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader, Tom Mulcair.